Everyone says the Emperor is still alive, that his light protects humanity from the darkness of space. But I've seen the truth. I've walked in the secret tunnels under the Golden Throne, where prayers are just fuel and faith is made of wires and metal. Down there, the smell of burning incense can't cover up the smell of burning people. And every time the Emperor's heart beats, someone has to die to keep it going. I remember the first time I was taken below the surface of Terra, not dragged, not forced, just taken, like a thing being moved from one shelf to another. My name was still fresh on the registry then. Technician, Acolyte Vale 3rd class, assigned to System Primus maintenance. They said it with reverence as if speaking the name of a saint, but no one would tell me what System Primus was. The Arbits who escorted me didn't speak. Their boots echoed in the vaulted corridors like the ticking of a clock. I tried to match their pace, but my legs were shorter, my robes too heavy. The air grew colder with every step. Not the cold of winter, but the cold of stone that has never seen the sun. The kind that seeps into your bones and stays there. We descended, level by level, staircase by staircase, each one older than the last. The walls changed as we went deeper, from polished marble to rough-cut stone, from stone to metal scarred with rust and prayer. The ceilings grew lower, the lights grew dimmer, and the silence grew heavier. I had been born on Terra. I had lived my entire life in the upper hives, where the sky was a dome of smog and the streets were so crowded you could barely breathe. But I had never been below. No one went below unless they were chosen or condemned. At the 100th level, we passed through a gateway marked with golden saints. Their faces had been worn smooth by centuries of incense smoke, their names erased by time. I wanted to ask who they were, but the Arbiter's silence felt like a command, so I said nothing. At the 200th level, the saints gave way to machines. Great iron pillars lined the corridors, their surfaces covered in brass prayer wheels and wax seals. They hummed softly, a low vibration that I felt more than heard. It was steady, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. "Keep walking," one of the Arbits said. His voice was flat, filtered through his helmet's Vox grill. It didn't sound human. I kept walking. At the 300th level, the stone turned black. The walls were slick with condensation, and the air smelled of oil and rot. The lights here were not electric. They were candles, thousands of them, embedded in iron chandeliers that hung from chains so old they looked ready to snap. The flames flickered in a draft I couldn't feel, casting shadows that moved like living things. I swallowed hard. My throat was dry. "Where are we going?" I finally asked. The Arbits didn't answer. We descended further. At the 500th level, I saw the first servitors. They stood in alcoves along the walls, motionless, their bodies half metal, half flesh. Their eyes were open but empty, staring at nothing. Tubes ran from their spines into the walls, pulsing with a thick, amber fluid. I had seen servitors before, everyone had. They swept the streets, hauled cargo, performed the mindless tasks that kept the Imperium running. But these were different. These weren't moving, they were waiting. "Why are they here?" I whispered. "They serve," the Arbits said. "Serve who?" He didn't answer. At the 1000th level, the walls began to breathe. I know how that sounds. I know you won't believe me, but I swear on the throne itself, the walls breathed. Not like a man, but like something older, slower. The stone expanded and contracted. Just barely, just enough to notice. The hum I had felt before was louder now, deeper, resonating through my chest. It felt like standing inside a drum. "System Primus," the Arbits said, gesturing ahead. I looked. Before me was a doorway. No, a gate. It was enormous, carved from a single slab of black stone, covered in etchings so small and intricate they seemed to move when I looked at them. Symbols I didn't recognize, words in languages that no longer existed. And at the center, etched in gold, was the Aquila, the double-headed eagle of the Imperium. "This is where you will work," the Arbits said. "You will not leave without permission. You will not speak of what you see. You will not ask questions. Do you understand?" I nodded. He placed his hand on the gate. It didn't push. It didn't pull. It simply recognized him, and the stone began to split. The sound was like thunder trapped in a tomb, a deep, grinding roar that made my teeth ache. The gate opened slowly, revealing a passageway lit by the same amber glow I had seen in the servitor tubes. "Go," the Arbits said. I stepped through. The gate closed behind me with a sound like the lid of a coffin. Inside, the air was warm, humid. It clung to my skin like oil. The hum was louder here, so loud I could feel it in my lungs. The passageway was lined with more machines. Not the prayer wheels and wax seals of the upper levels, but something older. Something that looked grown, not built. The metal was twisted, organic, fused with the stone in ways that made my stomach turn. I walked deeper. The corridor opened into a chamber so vast I couldn't see the ceiling. The walls were lined with thrones. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, each one occupied by a hunched figure draped in cables. They didn't move, they didn't speak, but they were alive. I could see their chests rising and falling, their fingers twitching against the armrests. Their faces were hidden behind brass masks, but I could hear them breathing, slow, steady, in perfect unison. System Primus, a voice said behind me. I spun around. A tech priest stood there, his body more machine than man. His robes were red, embroidered with gold thread, and his face was hidden behind a silver mask shaped like a skull. 6 mechanical arms extended from his back, each one holding a different tool. A wrench, a stylus, a scanner, a needle. "You are the new acolyte," he said. His voice was layered, distorted, like 3 people speaking at once. "Yes," I managed. "Good, come. You will be shown your duties." I followed him deeper into the chamber. The thrones were connected to the walls by thick cables that pulsed with the same amber light. I realized, with a chill, that the hum I had been hearing was coming from them. The people in the thrones, their bodies were part of the machine. "What are they doing?" I asked. "They are praying," the tech priest said. "Praying, yes, they sustain the system. They feed it with their thoughts, their will, their faith. Without them, the system dies." He paused. "Terra dies." I stared at the thrones, at the people, at the cables. How long have they been here? Some centuries, others millennia. Time is irrelevant. Only function matters. And what is the system's function? The tech priest turned to look at me. His mask betrayed no emotion, but I felt the weight of his gaze. "You will learn," he said. "In time." That night, if it was night, I had no way of knowing. I was given a cot in a side chamber. The hum never stopped. It followed me into sleep, into my dreams. I dreamt of golden light and rusted iron, of voices singing in a language I didn't understand. I dreamt of a man on a throne, his body broken, his eyes burning with a light that hurt to look at. When I woke, I was told to begin my duties. I was given a data slate, a toolkit, and a route. Every day, I would walk the conduits, checking for breaks, for corrosion, for signs of failure. Every day, I would repair what I could and report what I couldn't. Every day, I would pass the thrones, and every day, I would try not to think about the people inside them. But I couldn't stop thinking, because I had realized something. The hum I heard, the pulse in the cables, the rhythm of the machines, it wasn't random. It was synchronized, timed, measured. It was a heartbeat, and I knew deep in my bones that it wasn't mine. They told us never to look directly at the core, never to stare too long at the cables, never to listen too closely to the hum. "It will change you," they said. "It will make you see things that aren't there, hear things that were never spoken." But they were lying. The things I saw were real. The things I heard were real. They just didn't want us to know they were real. The Chamber of Acolytes was where I spent most of my time. It was a long, narrow room carved into the stone, lined with workbenches and tool racks and shelves filled with parts I couldn't name. The light came from overhead lumens that buzzed and flickered, casting everything in a sickly yellow glow. The air was thick with the smell of oil and ozone and something else. Something sweet and rotten, like fruit left too long in the sun. There were 12 of us. 12 acolytes, assigned to 12 shifts, working in pairs to maintain the conduits that fed System Primus. We didn't talk much, not because we were forbidden, though silence was encouraged, but because there was nothing to say. What could you say when every day was the same? When every task was the same? When every thought you had was crushed under the weight of duty? My partner was a woman named Cortha. She was older than me, her skin pale and scarred from years of work. Her hands trembled when she held the tools, but her movements were precise, practiced. She had been here longer than anyone, longer than the tech priests, some said, longer than the stone itself. "How long have you been here?" I asked her once, during a rare moment of rest. She didn't look at me, she just stared at the wall, at the cables running through it like veins. "Long enough," she said. "Do you ever think about leaving?" She laughed. It was a dry, brittle sound like paper tearing. "Leave? Where would I go?" "Up there." She gestured vaguely toward the ceiling. "Up there I'm nothing. A number, a name on a list. Down here, I have a purpose. Down here, I matter." I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell her that mattering didn't mean anything if you were trapped. But I didn't. Because I knew she was right. The work was simple, monotonous. We would walk the conduits, following the cables as they snaked through the walls and floors. We would check for breaks, for corrosion, for signs of wear. When we found something, we would repair it, soldering wires, replacing seals, tightening bolts. When we couldn't repair it, we would file a report, and someone else would come, someone higher, someone who knew more. But the repairs were never just repairs. Every wire we soldered was blessed with a prayer. Every seal we replaced was anointed with oil. Every bolt we tightened was turned in a specific pattern. 3 times clockwise, once counterclockwise, then 3 times clockwise again. The pattern was sacred, they said. The pattern ensured the machine's spirit would accept the repair. I didn't believe in machine spirits, not at first, but after a month of work, I started to notice things. When we said the prayers correctly, the repairs held. The cables stopped sparking, the seals stopped leaking. When we skipped the prayers even by a word, the repairs failed, the cables sparked brighter, the seals leaked worse. It was as if the machine was listening, as if it could tell the difference between faith and doubt. Does it bother you? I asked Cortha one day. Does what bother me? The prayers, the rituals, all of this, superstition. She stopped working and looked at me. Her eyes were tired, bloodshot, but there was something sharp in them, something that made me wish I hadn't asked. It's not superstition, she said quietly. It's the only thing keeping this place from falling apart. But, listen to me. She grabbed my arm, her grip surprisingly strong. The machine doesn't run on logic. It doesn't run on science. It runs on faith. Our faith. The prayers aren't words, they're fuel. And if you stop believing, even for a second, the whole thing collapses. I pulled my arm away. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to. At night, when the shift ended, we would return to the Chamber of Acolytes and sit in silence. Some of the others would eat. Some would pray. Some would just stare at the walls, their eyes glazed over, their minds somewhere else. I tried to sleep, but I couldn't. Because at night, when the machines dimmed, I could hear them. The voices. They came from the walls, from the floors, from the cables themselves. Soft at first, like whispers carried on the wind. But the longer I listened, the louder they became. They spoke in languages I didn't understand, in tones that made my skin crawl. They weren't human. They weren't machine. They were something in between. Do you hear them? I asked Cortha once. Hear what? The voices. She didn't answer for a long time. Then, quietly, she said, everyone hears them eventually. What are they? Prayers? Whose prayers? She looked at me, her expression unreadable. The dead. I didn't believe her. Not then. But a week later I was assigned to a deeper section of the conduits. A place I had never been before. The air there was colder, the hum louder. The cables were thicker, the size of a man's torso, and they pulsed with a light that wasn't amber but red. Deep, angry red, like blood. I followed them for hours, checking for damage, repairing what I could, and then I found it. A chamber. Small, hidden, barely large enough for one person. The walls were covered in etchings, names, thousands of them, carved into the stone. Some were fresh, the letters sharp and clear. Others were old, worn away by time until they were barely visible. I stepped inside. The hum was deafening here. It vibrated through my skull, my teeth, my bones. I wanted to leave, but I couldn't. Something kept me there, rooted to the spot, staring at the names. And then I realized, these weren't just names. They were the people in the thrones. Every name on the wall was someone who had sat in one of those chairs, someone who had given their mind, their will, their life to keep the system running. And when they died, when their body finally gave out, their name was carved here, a memorial, a monument. I traced my fingers over one of the names. The stone was warm, veil. I spun around. Cortha stood in the doorway, her face hidden in shadow. You shouldn't be here, she said. I know what you were doing, come. Now. I followed her back to the main conduit, my heart pounding. She didn't speak until we were far from the chamber. That place is forbidden, she said. Why? Because it's a reminder. Of what? She stopped and turned to face me. Of what happens to all of us, eventually. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay on my cot, staring at the ceiling, listening to the hum. I thought about the names on the wall, about the people in the thrones, about the voices I heard every night, and I realized something that made my blood run cold. The prayers we said, the rituals we performed, they weren't just maintaining the system, they were maintaining us, keeping us faithful, keeping us obedient, keeping us from asking the one question we were never supposed to ask, what are we really doing here? I didn't have an answer. But I knew deep down that I would find out. And I knew I wouldn't like it. I was reassigned to the lower conduits on the first day of my second month. They didn't tell me why. They never told us anything. One morning, the tech priest simply appeared in the Chamber of Acolytes, pointed at me and said, "You, come." Cortha didn't look at me as I left. No one did. They just kept working, their hands moving in the same practiced motions, their eyes fixed on the same cables. I wondered if they even noticed I was gone. The lower conduits were different from the upper ones. Narrower, darker. The walls were slick with moisture, and the floor was covered in a thin layer of something. It looked like oil, but it smelled organic, sweet and sour at the same time, like meat left to rot. The hum was louder here, so loud it made my ears ring. I could feel it in my chest, in my stomach, in the base of my spine. It wasn't just sound anymore, it was pressure pushing down on me from all sides. "This is Conduit Theta," the tech priest said, his voice crackling through his Vox grill. "You will monitor the bio-interface systems. You will ensure the nutrient flow remains stable. You will report any irregularities immediately. Do you understand?" I nodded, even though I didn't understand. I didn't know what a bio-interface system was. I didn't know what nutrient flow meant, but I knew better than to ask. The tech priest handed me a data slate and a toolkit, then turned and walked away. His mechanical limbs clanked against the stone, the sound echoing long after he disappeared. I was alone. I walked deeper into the conduit, following the road marked on the data slate. The cables here were different, thicker, softer, almost organic. They pulsed in rhythm with the hum, expanding and contracting like arteries. I reached out to touch one, and it was warm, alive. I pulled my hand back and kept walking. The conduit opened into a chamber. No, not a chamber, a vault. It was massive, taller than any building I'd ever seen, wider than any street. The ceiling was lost in shadow, and the walls were lined with tanks. Thousands of them. Each one was the size of a coffin, made of thick glass or crystal, filled with a glowing amber liquid. And inside each tank was a body. No, not a body, a servitor. They floated in the liquid, suspended by cables that ran from their spines, their skulls, their chests. Their eyes were open but empty, their mouths slack. Some were missing limbs, some were missing entire sections of their bodies, replaced by crude metal prosthetics. And all of them were connected to the same network of cables that ran through the walls, the floor, the ceiling. I stood there, frozen. The data slate beeped. I looked down. A message had appeared on the screen. System Primus ENTRFACRASTUS STABLE NOTARI EFLADU OPTIMAL NO IRACRITI is detected. I looked back at the tanks, at the servitors. What are you doing?" I whispered. They didn't answer. Of course they didn't. They couldn't. But as I watched, one of them moved, just barely. Its fingers twitched, its eyes flickered, and for a second, just a second, I thought I saw it looking at me. I spent hours in that vault, checking the tanks, monitoring the systems. The data slate told me everything was fine, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The servitors were alive, but they weren't living. They were breathing, but they weren't thinking. They were there, but they weren't present. It was like standing in a graveyard full of people who hadn't died yet. I made my rounds, checking each tank, scanning each connection. The nutrient flow was stable. The bio-interface was functioning. Everything was exactly as it should be. But then I reached the back of the vault, where the oldest tanks were kept. The glass was clouded with age, the amber liquid dark and murky, and inside one of the tanks, I saw something that made my stomach turn. A face, not a servitor's face. Not the blank, empty expression of someone who had been lobotomized and repurposed, but a human face. Eyes that were still sharp, a mouth that was still shaped in a scream. I pressed my hand against the glass. The face turned toward me. Its lips moved. I couldn't hear it. The glass was too thick, the liquid too dense. But I could see the words forming. "Help me." I stumbled back, my heart pounding. The data slate beeped again. Iron Engra Irajulan Anraela Tuidi Tunk 4471 Twitharekan OMD Amayat Taranan. I looked back at the face. It was still staring at me, still mouthing the same words. "Help me." My hands shook as I pulled up the tank's data. It had been here for 43 years. 43 years suspended in that liquid, connected to the system, feeding it with what? Its thoughts, its soul. The data slate beeped again. I stared at the screen, at the face in the tank, at the words still forming on its lips. I thought about what Cortha had said, about faith, about duty. About the machine not running on logic but on us. I thought about the people in the thrones. About the names on the wall. I thought about what I was really doing here. And then I pressed NO. The data slate went dark. For a moment nothing happened. The hum continued. The cables pulsed. The servitors floated in their tanks oblivious. And then the lights went out. Not all of them. Just the ones in the back of the vault, where the old tanks were. The amber glow faded, replaced by a cold, sickly red. The hum changed too. Lower, angrier, like the growl of a wounded animal. I heard footsteps behind me. I turned. The tech priest was there, his mask gleaming in the red light. He didn't speak, he didn't move, he just looked at me. I didn't. You disobeyed the termination protocol, he said. His voice was calm, but there was something underneath it. Something cold. I didn't know. You were given an order, you refused. That is heresy. Silence. He raised one of his mechanical arms, a needle extended from the tip, glinting in the light. You will return to your duties, he said, and you will not speak of this again. Do you understand? I nodded, my throat dry. He lowered his arm. Good, now leave. I didn't wait for him to change his mind. I grabbed my toolkit and ran. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't stop thinking about the face in the tank, about the words it had mouthed, about the termination protocol I had refused. I had thought I was doing the right thing. I had thought I was being human, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized maybe being human was the problem. Maybe the system didn't want us to be human. Maybe it wanted us to be like the servitors, empty, obedient, functional. Maybe that was the only way it could survive, and maybe eventually that's what we would all become. I looked down at my hands. They were shaking, not from fear, from anger, because I had realized something else. The face in the tank wasn't just a servitor. It was a person, someone who had been sentenced or volunteered or forced into that tank, someone who had been stripped of their body, their freedom, their self, and plugged into the system to keep it running. And no one cared, not the tech priests, not the arbits, not the Imperium, because the system was more important than any one person, more important than any 1,000 people. It was the only thing that mattered, and I was part of it. Word count low, 250 words. The tech priests who tended the sacred cables were not human anymore. I mean that literally. I had seen augmented people before. Everyone in the Imperium had. Bionic limbs were common among the veterans of the guard. Ocular implants were standard for the administratum clerks who spent their lives staring at ledgers. Even servitors, stripped as they were of thought and will, still retained some fragment of humanity in their flesh. But the tech priests of System Primus were different. They had crossed a line that most people only whispered about. They had replaced so much of themselves with machinery that calling them human felt like a lie. Their bodies were scaffolds of steel and copper, their skin stretched thin over frames of articulated metal. Their faces were hidden behind masks that never came off, not because they chose to hide, but because there was nothing left beneath to reveal. They moved through the conduits like specters, their robes trailing behind them, their mechanical limbs clicking and whirring with every step. They spoke in voices layered with static, their words filtered through vox grills that made them sound like a chorus instead of a single person. And they never stopped working, never stopped praying, never stopped bleeding for the machine. I learned this on my 3rd month, when I was summoned to observe a ritual. The ritual took place in a chamber I had never seen before, a circular room deep in the heart of System Primus, its walls lined with consoles and monitors that displayed data I couldn't understand. The floor was covered in cables, thousands of them, all converging on a single point at the center of the room, a throne. Not like the thrones in the Chamber of Acolytes. This one was larger, older, covered in etchings and symbols that seemed to move when I looked at them. And seated in the throne was a tech priest. He was ancient. His body was almost entirely mechanical, his limbs replaced by spindly metal appendages that looked more like surgical tools than arms. His head was encased in a brass helmet covered in blinking lights and twitching needles. Cables ran from the back of his skull into the throne, into the floor, into the walls. He was plugged into the system. "Observe," said the tech priest who had brought me here. His name was Magos Vrel, and he was the highest-ranking member of the Order. His voice was deeper than the others, distorted by layers of augmentation. "This is the rite of communion. It is how we speak to the machine, how we understand it." I watched as the other tech priests gathered around the throne, their hands moving in synchronized patterns, their voices rising in a chant that sounded like binary code mixed with prayer. The words were incomprehensible, but the rhythm was perfect, mechanical, inhuman. The priest in the throne began to shake. At first it was subtle, a twitch in his fingers, a tremor in his jaw, but it grew worse. His whole body convulsed, his metal limbs clattering against the throne, sparks flying from the cables. His vox grill emitted a sound like a scream run through a broken speaker. "Is he in pain?" I asked. "Pain is irrelevant," Magos Vrel said. "What matters is connection." The priest's convulsions grew more violent. Smoke began to rise from his helmet, thin and acrid, smelling of burned insulation and something else. Something organic. The other priests didn't stop chanting. If anything, they grew louder, their voices filling the chamber until I couldn't hear my own thoughts. And then, suddenly it stopped. The priest in the throne went still. His body slumped forward, held upright only by the cables. The smoke stopped rising. The sparks stopped flying. The chamber fell silent. Eyes heaved. "Dead," I whispered. Magos Vrel turned his masked face toward me. "No, he is enlightened." The priest was disconnected from the throne and carried away by servitors. His body was limp, lifeless, but I could see his chest rising and falling, barely. "What did he learn?" I asked. "He learned what the machine needed," Magos Vrel said. "Where the system is failing. What must be repaired, what must be sacrificed. Sacrificed. The machine requires fuel, not just power, not just matter, but will, consciousness. The rite of communion allows us to see where that will must be directed, to identify the weak points in the circuit, to offer ourselves in service of the greater function." "You mean, you kill people to keep the machine running?" Magos Vrel's mask betrayed no emotion, but I felt the weight of his gaze. "We do not kill," he said slowly. "We transfuse. The machine does not destroy life, it transforms it. Every mind connected to the system becomes part of something greater, something eternal. Death is not the end, it is transcendence." I stared at him, my mouth dry. "That's insane. That is faith." I was assigned to assist with the rite of communion after that, not as a participant. I was far too low ranking for that. But as a technician, my job was to monitor the systems, to ensure the connections were stable, to replace burned out components when the priests pushed the machinery beyond its limits. I saw it happen 3 more times over the following weeks. Each time, a different priest would sit in the throne. Each time, they would convulse and scream and bleed smoke. And each time they would emerge changed. Quieter, slower, as if something had been taken from them. "What happens to them?" I asked Kortha one night, back in the Chamber of Acolytes. She didn't look up from her work. "They give a piece of themselves to the machine. Every time they commune, they lose a little more. Eventually, there's nothing left. And then they become part of the system. Permanently." "You mean they?" "I mean they die, Vale, but not before they've given everything they have. That's what the priests do. That's what all of us will do eventually." "I won't," I said. "I won't let that happen." She finally looked at me. Her eyes were tired, but there was something else in them. "Pity, you don't get a choice." The worst part wasn't the rituals. It wasn't the convulsions or the smoke or the screams filtered through broken vox grills. The worst part was that the priests believed they weren't being forced. They weren't coerced. They wanted to sit in that throne. They wanted to plug themselves into the system, to burn themselves out, to sacrifice their minds and bodies for the machine, because they believed it mattered. They believed the Emperor was alive because of them. That Terra was safe because of them. That humanity survived because of their suffering. And maybe they were right, but that didn't make it any less horrifying. One night, after a particularly brutal ritual, I stayed behind in the chamber. The other acolytes had returned to their bunks, but I couldn't sleep. I couldn't stop thinking about the priest who had been in the throne. Magos Kellis, his name had been. He had screamed for 7 straight minutes before going silent. When they pulled him out, his eyes were bleeding. I walked to the throne and placed my hand on it. The metal was warm, alive. "Why?" I whispered. "Why do you need this? Why do you need us to die for you?" The throne didn't answer. Of course it didn't. It was a machine, it couldn't think, it couldn't feel. But then I heard it, a voice, not from the throne, but from the cables, from the walls, from the system itself. It wasn't words, it was more like a sensation, a presence, something vast and ancient and hungry. And I realized with a chill that ran down my spine that the machine wasn't just a tool. It was alive, not in the way a person is alive, not even in the way an animal is alive, but in a way that was older, deeper, more primal. The machine had a will, and it was starving. I stumbled back from the throne, my heart pounding. The presence faded, but the feeling stayed with me. The knowledge that I wasn't just maintaining a system, I was feeding it. Veil. I spun around. Magos Vrel stood in the doorway, his silhouette framed by the amber light of the corridor. "You should not be here," he said. I know what you were doing." He stepped into the chamber, his mechanical limbs clicking softly. "You felt it, didn't you, the pulse, the hunger?" I nodded, unable to speak. "Good," he said. "That means you are beginning to understand." "Understand what?" "That the machine is not our servant. It is our God, and like all gods it demands sacrifice." "But why?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Why does it need us to suffer?" "Because suffering is the currency of faith," Magos Vrel said. "The Imperium was built on suffering. It is sustained by suffering. And when we suffer for the machine, we prove our devotion. We prove that we are worthy." "Worthy of what?" He tilted his head, the lights on his mask flickering. "Worthy of survival." I didn't sleep that night. I lay on my cot staring at the ceiling, listening to the hum. I thought about Magos Vrel's words. About the hunger I had felt in the throne. About the priests who burned themselves out over and over, because they believed it mattered. And I thought about myself. About how long I could keep doing this. How long I could keep feeding the machine before it demanded more than I was willing to give. I didn't have an answer. But I knew, deep in my bones, that the machine would take everything from me. It was only a matter of time. Word count knew 200 words. When the Astronomican flickered, everything stopped. Not in the way you might think. There were no alarms, no flashing lights, no voices shouting over the vox. The Imperium had no protocol for the Astronomican failing, because the Astronomican was not supposed to fail. It was the Emperor's light, the beacon that guided ships through the warp, the one constant in a galaxy of chaos. But I was there when it happened, and I can tell you it did fail. For 3 seconds the light went out. I was in the lower conduits when it began. It was my 4th month in System Primus, and I had grown used to the rhythm of the work, the hum of the machines, the pulse of the cables, the prayers whispered by the priests. It had all become background noise, as familiar as my own heartbeat. But then, the hum changed. It didn't stop. It didn't grow louder, it just shifted, like a song played in the wrong key. The cables, which normally pulsed with a steady amber glow, flickered. The light dimmed, then brightened, then dimmed again. I stopped working and looked around. The other acolytes had noticed it too. Cortha was frozen in place, her hands gripping a cable, her eyes wide. Across the conduit, another acolyte, a young man named Tyron, dropped his toolkit. The tools clattered to the floor, the sound echoing in the sudden, oppressive silence. Because the hum had stopped. For the first time since I had arrived, the machines were silent, and then the screaming began. It came from the Chamber of Acolytes, from the thrones, from the priests. I ran. The corridors were chaos. Acolytes stumbled out of side passages, their faces pale, their hands trembling. Servitors convulsed in their alcoves, their bodies jerking against their restraints. The lights flickered and died, plunging us into darkness, and then roared back to life with a brightness that hurt to look at. I reached the Chamber of Acolytes and stopped. The people in the thrones were seizing. All of them, their bodies thrashed against the cables, their mouths open in silent screams. Blood ran from their noses, their ears, their eyes. The cables that connected them to the system sparked and hissed, smoke rising from the connections. And in the center of the chamber, standing perfectly still, was Magos Vrel. "What's happening?" I shouted. He didn't answer. He was staring at a console, his mechanical hands moving over the controls with a speed that was almost inhuman. Data streamed across the screen, lines of code, diagnostic reports, warnings written in high Gothic and binary. "The Astronomican," he said finally, his voice barely audible over the noise. It flickered. "What does that mean?" "It means the Emperors will faltered." For 3 seconds, the light went out, and in those 3 seconds, the system felt his absence. I looked back at the thrones, at the people convulsing in their seats. "What do? We stabilize," Magos Vrel said. "We reinforce the connections. We offer more." "More what?" He turned to look at me, his mask gleaming in the flickering light. "More of ourselves." The priests moved quickly, too quickly. They descended on the thrones like vultures, their mechanical limbs tearing open panels, replacing cables, injecting the occupants with syringes filled with a glowing liquid I didn't recognize. The people in the thrones didn't stop seizing. If anything, they got worse. One of them, a woman, her face hidden behind a brass mask, began to scream, not the silent scream of someone in pain, but a real scream, loud and raw and full of terror. The sound cut through the noise like a knife, and then she stopped. Her body went limp. The cables connected to her spine sparked once, twice, and then went dark. The priests pulled her from the throne, her body collapsing like a puppet with its strings cut. "She's dead," I said, my voice shaking. "She is transfused," Magos Vrel said. "Her mind has been absorbed into the system. She is part of it now. She will sustain it." "You mean she's fuel?" "I mean she is eternal." I wanted to scream. I wanted to hit him, to tear the mask off his face and make him look at what he had done. But I didn't, because I knew it wouldn't change anything. The system didn't care. The priests didn't care. The Imperium didn't care. All that mattered was that the light stayed on. The Astronomican stabilized after an hour. The hum returned, deeper and steadier than before. The cables stopped sparking. The people in the throne stopped seizing, though some of them didn't move at all. I counted 12 bodies pulled from the thrones, 12 lives extinguished to keep the system running. I helped carry them to the lower chambers where they would be processed. I didn't ask what processed meant. I didn't want to know. When it was over, I sat alone in a corner of the Chamber of Acolytes, my hands shaking, my mind racing. I thought about the woman who had screamed, about the 12 bodies, about the 3 seconds of silence that had cost so much. "Why?" I whispered. "Why does it have to be like this?" "Because the alternative is worse." I looked up. Cortha stood above me, her face pale, her eyes red from crying. "Worse how?" I asked. "If the Astronomican goes out, the Imperium falls. Ships get lost in the warp, worlds go dark, billions die. The system isn't perfect, Vale, but it's all we have, so we just accept this. We just let people die. We don't let them die. We honor them, we remember their sacrifice, and we keep working. Because if we stop, it all ends." She turned and walked away, leaving me alone with my thoughts. That night I dreamed of the Astronomican. I saw it as the priests must see it, not as a light but as a wound, a burning, bleeding gash in reality, held open by the will of the Emperor and the suffering of thousands. Every prayer was a stitch, every life, a drop of blood to keep the wound from closing. And on the other side of the wound, I saw them, the things in the warp, the daemons, the nightmares. They pressed against the edges of the light, their claws scraping, their mouths gnashing, desperate to break through, and the only thing stopping them was the Emperor's will. But his will was fading. I could see it, feel it. The light was dimmer than it should be. The wound was growing, and every flicker, every moment of weakness, brought the daemons closer. I woke up screaming. The next day, I was summoned to Magos Vrel's sanctum. It was a small chamber near the heart of System Primus, lined with shelves full of data, slates and relics I didn't recognize. He stood in the center, his back to me, staring at a screen that displayed a schematic of the Astronomican. "You dreamed of it," he said without turning around. "How did you?" "Everyone who works in System Primus dreams of it eventually. The Astronomican is not just a light. It is a presence, a consciousness. It reaches into us whether we want it to or not. What does it want? It wants to survive, and it will do whatever is necessary to ensure that survival." He turned to face me, his mask unreadable. "The Emperor is dying, Vile. He has been dying for 10,000 years, and every day we delay the inevitable with machines and prayers and sacrifice. But one day, maybe tomorrow, maybe a millennium from now, it will not be enough. The light will go out, and when it does, the galaxy will burn. Then why do we keep trying?" I asked. "If it's inevitable, why do we keep feeding it? Why do we keep dying for it?" "Because hope is not about certainty. It is about defiance. We do not sacrifice because we believe we will succeed. We sacrifice because we refuse to surrender." He stepped closer, his mechanical limbs clicking softly. "That is the truth of the Imperium, Vale. We are not winning. We are not even surviving. We are simply enduring, and endurance in a galaxy like this is the only victory we will ever know." I left his sanctum in a daze. His words echoed in my mind, mixing with the hum of the machines, the prayers of the priests, the screams of the dying. I thought about the 12 bodies, about the woman who had screamed, about the wound in reality, and the daemons clawing at its edges. And I thought about the Emperor. For the first time, I didn't think of him as a god. I thought of him as a man, a broken, dying man trapped on a throne, burning himself away to keep the light alive. And I realized something that made my stomach turn. He wasn't keeping the light alive for us. We were keeping it alive for him. Because if we let the machine die, if we stopped feeding it with our prayers and our lives, The Emperor would finally be allowed to rest, and the Imperium was too afraid to let him go. Deep beneath the sanctum, I was shown the core. It happened on the first day of my 5th month. I was summoned by Magos Vrel, along with 3 other acolytes. He didn't tell us why. He just led us deeper into System Primus than I had ever been before, past the Chamber of Acolytes, past the conduits and the thrones, past the vaults of servitors floating in their amber tombs. We descended for hours. The air grew warmer with every step, humid, thick. It clung to my skin like sweat, and the smell, oh the smell. It was sweet and putrid at the same time, like flowers rotting in the sun. It made my stomach churn. The walls changed as we went deeper. They stopped looking like stone and started looking like something else. Something organic. The metal cables that ran through them looked less like wires and more like veins. The lumens embedded in the ceiling pulsed in rhythm with the hum, casting everything in a sickly throbbing light. "Where are we going?" one of the other acolytes asked. Her name was Ceres, and her voice was barely a whisper. "To the heart," Magos Vrel said. "The heart of what?" He didn't answer. We reached a gate. It was massive, taller than the cathedral of the Savior Emperor, carved from a single slab of black stone covered in golden etchings. The symbols were moving, I realized, shifting, rearranging themselves into patterns that hurt to look at. Magos Vrel placed his hand on the gate. It didn't open. It peeled back, the stone splitting like skin, revealing a passageway beyond. "Enter," he said. We obeyed. Inside was a cathedral. No, that's not the right word. It was a cathedral of flesh. The walls were not stone, they were bone. Huge curving ribs that arched overhead like the supports of a great basilica. Between the ribs were membranes, thin, translucent tissue that pulsed with light, and running through everything, like veins through a body, were cables. Thousands of them. Millions. They coiled and twisted and merged, forming a network so vast and complex I couldn't comprehend it. And at the center of the cathedral, suspended in a cage of wire and light, was him, the Emperor, or what was left of him. I had expected gold. I had expected light. I had expected the radiant, godlike figure described in the Imperial Creed, the master of mankind, the father of the Imperium. What I saw was a corpse. He was seated on a throne. Not the golden throne, not the one described in scripture, but something older, something that looked grown, not built. His body was skeletal, his skin stretched thin over bones that looked ready to snap. His eyes were closed, his mouth slack. Tubes ran from his chest, his spine, his skull, feeding into the cables that connected him to the machine. And he was breathing, not like a man, like a machine, slow, mechanical, each breath a rattling gasp that echoed through the cathedral. "Behold," Magos Vrel said, his voice reverent. "The Emperor, the heart of System Primus." I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. I just stared. "This is what we maintain," Magos Vrel continued. "This is what we sacrifice for, not a god, not a man, but a function. The Emperor's body is dead, his mind is fragmented, but his will remains. And as long as his will remains, the Imperium survives." "How?" Ceres whispered. "How is he still alive?" Magos Vrel gestured to the cables. "The machine sustains him. It feeds him with the minds of the faithful, with the prayers of the priests, with the lives of those who offer themselves in service. Every soul connected to the system becomes part of him, becomes fuel." "You mean?" My voice cracked. "You mean we're keeping him alive by feeding him people?" "We are keeping the Imperium alive," Magos Vrel said. "The Emperor is the conduit. Without him, the Astronomican fails. Without the Astronomican, humanity falls. Every life we offer is a life saved. Every death a victory." I looked at the corpse on the throne, at the cables feeding into his body, at the slow, mechanical rise and fall of his chest. "This is wrong," I said. "This is necessary." Magos Vrel led us closer. The air grew hotter, thicker, harder to breathe. I could hear the hum now, not from the machines, but from him. It was coming from the Emperor's body, resonating through the bones, the cables, the very stone beneath our feet. "You will witness the rite of transfusion," Magos Vrel said. "It is the highest honor, the ultimate act of faith." I didn't want to witness it. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. A door opened at the far end of the cathedral. Servitors entered, carrying a man on a stretcher. He was awake, his eyes wide with terror. He struggled against his restraints, but it was useless. The servitors placed him on a platform beside the throne and stepped back. A tech priest approached. Not Magos Vrel, but someone else, someone older, more machine than man. He held a syringe filled with glowing liquid. "In the name of the Omnissiah," The tech priest intuned. We offer this soul in service of the Imperium. May his mind sustain the Emperor. May his will feed the light. May his sacrifice be eternal. He injected the man with the syringe. The man screamed. His body convulsed, his back arching, his mouth open in a soundless wail. The tech priest attached cables to his skull, his spine, his chest. And then, slowly, the man's screams faded. His eyes went blank, his body went still, and the cables pulsed. Light ran through them, flowing from the man's body into the throne, into the Emperor. The corpse's chest rose, just slightly. His fingers twitched, and for a moment, just a moment, I thought I saw his eyes open. They were burning. Not with light, with pain. I stumbled back, my stomach heaving. I turned away and vomited, the bile burning my throat. The other acolytes looked pale, their eyes hollow. Only Magos Vrel seemed unmoved. That is the truth, he said. That is what we do. We harvest the dying. We drain their minds, their souls, their essence, and feed it to the Emperor. Not because we are cruel, not because we are evil, but because it is the only way to keep him and the Imperium alive. How many? I asked, my voice shaking. How many people have you fed to him? Thousands, Magos Vrel said. Every day, for 10,000 years. I looked back at the throne, at the corpse, at the man whose body now hung limp on the platform, his soul drained, his mind gone. This is hell, I whispered. This is survival, Magos Vrel said. We were led back to the upper levels in silence. None of us spoke. None of us looked at each other. What was there to say? That night I couldn't sleep. I lay on my cot, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the Emperor, about the corpse on the throne, about the man who had been drained, his soul fed into the machine like fuel into a fire. And I thought about Magos Vrel's words. This is survival. He was right. I knew he was right. Without the Emperor, the Astronomican would fail. Without the Astronomican, the Imperium would collapse. Billions would die, maybe trillions. But knowing that didn't make it any easier, because I had seen the Emperor's eyes. I had seen the pain in them, and I knew, deep in my bones, that he didn't want this. He didn't want to be kept alive. He didn't want to be a corpse on a throne, fed with the souls of the dying. He wanted to rest. But the Imperium wouldn't let him, because if he died, they would lose their god, their symbol, their excuse for everything they had done. And so they kept him alive, not for his sake, but for theirs. I thought about the man on the platform, about his screams, about the light draining from his eyes, and I realized something that made me want to weep. That man would not be the last. There would be another tomorrow, and another the day after that, and another, and another, and another, for as long as the Imperium stood. An endless procession of souls fed into the machine, drained of everything that made them human, all to keep a corpse breathing. And one day, it would be my turn. One day they would strap me to that platform, inject me with that glowing liquid, and drain my mind into the Emperor's throne. And I wouldn't even have the mercy of death, because my soul would live forever, trapped in the machine, screaming in the dark, sustaining a god who couldn't die. That was the truth of System Primus. That was the truth of the Imperium, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. The day the Inquisition arrived, we were told nothing. One moment, we were working in the conduits, checking cables, reciting prayers, performing the same rituals we had performed 1,000 times before. The next, the alarms sounded, not the wailing sirens of a breach or malfunction, but a single, deep bell that rang through the halls of System Primus like a funeral toll. We stopped working, all of us. The priests, the acolytes, even the servitors seemed to pause, as if the entire system was holding its breath. And then they came. The Inquisition does not announce itself. It does not ask permission. It simply arrives, and everyone else is expected to obey. They came in black armor, their faces hidden behind helmets marked with the inquisitorial sigil, the stylized "Ayu" with a skull at its center. They carried weapons I didn't recognize, and their movements were precise, coordinated, like they had rehearsed this 100 times before. Behind them came the Inquisitor himself. He was tall, wrapped in robes the color of dried blood. His face was hidden beneath a deep hood, and his hands were covered in black gloves. He carried no weapon that I could see, but there was something about him, something in the way he moved, the way the air seemed to bend around him, that made my skin crawl. By the authority of the Holy Ordos, one of the soldiers announced, his voice amplified by his helmet's vox. This facility is under inquisitorial jurisdiction. All personnel are to cease operations immediately and await further instruction. We obeyed. What else could we do? The Inquisitor moved through System Primus like a predator stalking prey. He examined everything: the consoles, the cables, the thrones. He questioned the priests, his voice low and calm, but there was a weight to his words that made even Magos Vrel hesitate before answering. I watched from a distance, my heart pounding. I didn't know why the Inquisition was here, but I knew it couldn't be good. The Inquisition only came when something was wrong. When there was heresy, when there was doubt, when there was failure. The Inquisitor stopped in front of one of the thrones. The woman seated in it was young, her face pale, her eyes open but unseeing. Cables ran from her skull into the system, pulsing with amber light. She had been there for 3 years, Cortha had told me. 3 years of her mind feeding the machine. The Inquisitor reached out and touched the woman's face, gently, almost tenderly, and then he pulled a device from his robes, a small, black box covered in seals and etchings, and pressed it against her forehead. The woman convulsed. Her body jerked against the restraints, her mouth opening in a silent scream. The cables sparked and hissed, and for a moment I thought the Inquisitor had killed her. But then the convulsions stopped. The woman went still, and the Inquisitor removed the device, his expression unreadable beneath his hood. "Corrupted," he said quietly. Magos Vrel stepped forward, his mechanical limbs clicking. "Corrupted? Impossible. All candidates are screened. All protocols are followed. There is no corruption in System Primus." The Inquisitor turned to face him. Even through the hood, I could feel the weight of his gaze. "There is always corruption," he said. "The question is whether it has spread too far to contain." Over the next 3 days, the Inquisition tore through System Primus like a scalpel cutting out a tumor. They examined every throne, every cable, every servitor. They interrogated the priests one by one, asking questions I couldn't hear, and they erased. Chambers were sealed, consoles were purged, data slates were confiscated and destroyed. I watched as they carried away cartloads of equipment, relics, texts, machines I had maintained for months, and burned them in a massive pyre in one of the lower vaults. The flames roared for hours, and the smell of burning incense and melting metal filled the air. "What are they looking for?" I asked Cortha one night as we huddled in the Chamber of Acolytes. "Signs of taint," she said. "The warp, chaos, anything that might compromise the system. But there's nothing like that here, is there?" She didn't answer. Her silence was more terrifying than any words could have been. On the 4th day, the Inquisitor summoned me. I was escorted by 2 soldiers to a chamber I had never seen before. A small circular room with no windows, no consoles, no cables. Just a single chair in the center, and the Inquisitor standing beside it. "Sit," he said. I obeyed. He circled me slowly, his footsteps echoing in the silence. I could feel his eyes on me, even though I couldn't see them. "You are Technician Acolyte Vale," he said. "You have been in System Primus for 5 months. You have performed your duties without complaint. Your records are adequate." He stopped in front of me. "But I see doubt in you." My blood ran cold. "I don't. Do not lie to me." His voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. "I can see it. The way you look at the thrones, the way you hesitate when you recite the prayers. You do not believe. Not truly." "I believe in the Emperor," I said quickly. "I believe in the Imperium. Do you?" He leaned closer, and I could finally see his face beneath the hood. It was scarred, burned, marked with sigils that looked like they had been carved into his skin. His eyes were grey, empty, like he had seen too much and felt too little. "Faith is not about words," he said. "It is about action, and doubt. Doubt is infection. It spreads, it corrupts, it weakens the foundation upon which everything is built." He straightened and pulled something from his robes, a seal, a small circular medallion marked with the inquisitorial sigil. "I could execute you," he said, "right here, right now. It would be mercy compared to what doubt can do. But I will not, because I believe you can still serve. I believe you can still be useful." He pressed the seal against my forehead. It was cold, so cold it burned. I tried to pull away, but his grip was iron. "This is my mark," he said. "It binds you, it watches you, and if you falter, if you allow your doubt to fester, it will know, and I will return." He removed the seal. My forehead throbbed, and when I touched it I felt raised skin, a scar, the shape of the inquisitorial sigil, burned into my flesh. "Return to your duties," the Inquisitor said, "and remember, faith is maintenance. Doubt is infection. You will serve the Emperor, or you will die. There is no third option." I left the chamber in a daze. My forehead burned. My hands shook. I could still feel the Inquisitor's eyes on me, even though he was no longer there. The other acolytes avoided me after that. They saw the scar on my forehead and knew what it meant. I was marked, watched. One mistake, one moment of weakness, and I would be erased. Cortha was the only one who spoke to me. "Don't let it break you," she said quietly as we worked in the conduits. "The Inquisition marks everyone eventually. It's their way of keeping us in line. Does it ever go away?" I asked, touching the scar. "No, it's with you forever. A reminder. Of what? That you're never truly free." The Inquisition left after a week. They took 12 priests with them and sealed off 3 entire chambers. Magos Vrel said they had found evidence of corruption, fragments of warp, taint in the neural pathways of some of the throne-bound. It had been purged, he said. The system was secure. But I didn't believe him, because the day after the Inquisition left, something changed. The hum was different, quieter, less steady. The cables pulsed slower, dimmer, and the people in the thrones, they looked wrong. Their faces were slack, their eyes duller. It was as if something had been taken from them, or burned out. What did they do? I asked Cortha. They did what they always do, she said. They cut out the rot, and they didn't care how much healthy flesh they took with it. I looked at the thrones, at the cables, at the system I had spent 5 months maintaining, and I realized something that made my stomach turn. The Inquisition hadn't come to protect System Primus. They had come to silence it, to erase anyone who had seen too much, who had asked too many questions, who had doubted, and they had left me alive, not because I was faithful, but because I was marked, because they wanted me to know that they were watching, and that one day if I stepped out of line they would return. That night, I stood alone in the conduits, staring at the cables. The hum was still wrong, still broken, and for the first time, I wondered if the system could even be repaired, or if it was already too late. Now I sit alone beneath the throne, listening to the silence that no machine can fix. It has been 6 months since the Inquisition left. 6 months since they sealed the chambers and took the priests and burned everything they deemed corrupted. 6 months since they pressed their mark into my forehead and told me that doubt was infection. And in those 6 months everything has fallen apart. The acolytes are gone. All of them. Cortha was the first. She simply didn't wake up one morning. I found her on her cot, her eyes open but empty, her hands still clutching her prayer beads. The Servitors carried her away before I could say anything, before I could even grieve. Ceres went next. She walked into one of the sealed chambers and never came out. Tyrant followed a week later, and then the others one by one, until I was the only one left. I don't know if they were taken, or if they chose to go. Maybe there's no difference. The priests are gone too. Most of them. Magos Vrel is still here, but he barely speaks anymore. His body has deteriorated, more machine than man now, barely held together by cables and faith. He spends his days in the rite of communion, plugged into the throne, screaming into the void. I asked him once why he keeps doing it, why he keeps burning himself out for a system that's already failing. He didn't answer. He just looked at me with his dead, mechanical eyes and said, "Because the alternative is worse." The hum is gone. Not completely. It's still there, faint and distant, like the echo of a heartbeat. But it's not the steady rhythmic pulse I remember. It's erratic, uneven, dying. The cables still glow, but the light is dim, flickering. The thrones are mostly empty now. The people who once sat in them are gone, drained, transfused, consumed. And there are no replacements, no new candidates, no fresh souls to feed the machine. The system is running on fumes. No, not fumes. Faith. And faith, I've learned, is the most fragile fuel of all. I still do my rounds, every day, checking the conduits, repairing the cables, reciting the prayers. Not because I believe it matters, not because I think it will make a difference, but because it's all I know how to do. My hands move by habit, soldering wires, tightening bolts, anointing seals with oil. The motions are automatic now, burned into my muscles by months of repetition. I don't even think about them anymore. But sometimes as I work I hear it, a voice. Not from the cables, not from the machines. From him. The Emperor. It's not words. It's more like a presence. A whisper at the edge of my mind. A question asked in a language I don't understand. And I know what he's asking. Do I still live? I went back to the core once a month ago. I needed to see him. Needed to know if he was still there. The gate was sealed, but I knew the access codes. Magos Vrel had taught them to me, back when he still thought I could be saved. I descended alone, through the empty corridors, past the abandoned thrones and the silent servitors. The air was colder than I remembered. Styler. Like the breath of a tomb. When I reached the cathedral of flesh, I stopped. The ribs that formed the walls were grey now, cracked and brittle. The membranes between them had torn, leaving gaping holes that bled a faint, sickly light, and the cables, the millions of cables that had once formed a network of life, were dark, dead, hanging limp like severed arteries, and in the center on the throne was the Emperor. He looked smaller, shrunken. His skin was stretched so thin I could see the bones beneath. His chest still rose and fell, but the breaths were shallow, uneven, barely there. I approached slowly, my footsteps echoing in the silence. When I stood before him, I fell to my knees, not out of reverence, out of grief, because I realized, in that moment, what I was looking at. Not a god, not even a man, a corpse, kept alive by machines that no longer worked, by prayers that no longer mattered, by faith that had long since rotted away. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I'm so sorry." His eyes didn't open, his body didn't move, but I heard it again, that whisper, that question. Do I still live? I didn't know how to answer. I returned to the upper levels and tried to resume my work, but the question stayed with me. It echoed in my mind, louder than the hum ever was. Do I still live? And the more I thought about it, the more I realized I didn't know. The Emperor's body was still breathing, his heart, if he even had a heart anymore, was still beating, but was he alive? Or was he just functioning, a machine running on autopilot, sustained by systems that had forgotten their purpose? I thought about the people in the thrones, about the souls drained into the system, about the thousands of lives fed into the machine every day. Were they alive, or were they just fuel? And if they were just fuel, then what did that make the Emperor? A furnace, a wound, a mistake. The lights went out 2 weeks ago, not all of them, just the ones in the deepest levels. The conduits went dark and the servitors stopped moving. The cables stopped pulsing, and the hum, the faint, fragile hum that had been the only proof the system was still running, faded to nothing. I tried to fix it. I checked the power relays, the nutrient feeds, the neural pathways, but there was nothing to fix. The system hadn't broken, it had just stopped. Like a heart giving out, like a body too tired to keep fighting. Now I sit alone in the Chamber of Acolytes, surrounded by empty thrones and silent machines. The lumens above me flicker and die, one by one, plunging the room into darkness. I should be afraid. I should be panicking, running to find Magos Vrel, trying to restart the system. But I'm not, because I know the truth. The system can't be restarted. It's not broken. It's not corrupted. It's finished. It has given everything it had, burned through every soul, every prayer, every drop of faith, and now there's nothing left. The Emperor is dying. No, the Emperor is dead, and the only thing keeping the illusion alive is me. I think about the Inquisitor's words, about faith being maintenance, about doubt being infection. He was right, but not in the way he thought. Faith is maintenance. It's the rituals we perform to keep ourselves from seeing the truth. The prayers we recite to drown out the screams. The lies we tell ourselves to make the suffering bearable. And doubt isn't infection, doubt is clarity. It's the moment you realize that the machine you've been maintaining isn't sacred, it's just old, tired, broken, and maybe it's time to let it die. I stand up, my legs are shaky, weak from days of sitting. I walk to one of the thrones and place my hand on it. The metal is cold, lifeless. I think about Cortha, about Ceres, about Tyron, about all the acolytes who came before me, who worked and prayed and died for a system that never cared about them. I think about the Emperor, about the corpse on the throne, breathing his last, kept alive by machines that no longer work and faith that no longer exists. And I think about myself, about the scar on my forehead, about the Inquisitor's mark, about the promise I made, to serve, to obey, to endure. But I'm tired, so tired, and I don't want to endure anymore. I walk to the nearest console and pull up the system diagnostics. The screen flickers to life, displaying a cascade of warnings and errors: power failure, nutrient depletion, neural collapse, system critical. There's a command at the bottom of the screen, a shutdown protocol, emergency use only. It would take 30 seconds, maybe less, 30 seconds to cut the power, to sever the connections, to let the system and the Emperor finally rest. I place my hand on the console, and then I hear it. Not a whisper, not a question, a plea. Let me go. My hand trembles. I look at the screen, at the shutdown command, at the flickering light of the cables. I think about the Imperium, about the billions who depend on the Astronomican, about the ships lost in the warp, about the worlds that will fall if the light goes out. And I think about the Emperor, about 10,000 years of suffering, about the souls fed into the machine, about the pain in his eyes, and I make my choice. I press the button. The system doesn't die with a roar, it dies with a sigh. The cables go dark, the thrones go still. The hum, the last, faint echo of the Emperor's heartbeat, fades into silence, and in that silence I feel at peace. Not mine, his. I don't know what happens next. I don't know if the Imperium will survive. I don't know if the Astronomican will reignite, or if the galaxy will burn. All I know is that I'm sitting here, alone in the dark, listening to the silence. And for the first time in 6 months, I'm not afraid. Because I've done the only thing that mattered. I've let a dead god rest.